euro cents. It's also buying 64 pence sterling.
Well, for more on finance, we're joined by Rod North, Executive Director at Bourse Communications. Thanks very much for being here.
Good morning.
Now, take us through this good data that's coming out of China.
Yes, look, we had some really good data on trade figures over the weekend, but in particular, I think the one key figure that everyone was looking for was that inflation figure, and that's come in at 1.8% for September against the sort of 2% from the previous months. But that's a significant number, particularly given, I mean, there has been a lot of talk for some time about the concern that world markets have about what China's going to do with its growth, and it's quite interesting because each time we seem to get the data, it sort of gives us a much more improved outlook than perhaps what was forecast, and I sort of found it quite interesting because inflation is being maintained to be contained, and obviously as Australia's biggest trading partner, we're watching very closely any data that comes out of China, and obviously there's more significant data coming out as you know, we get to the end of the year as well.
Yeah, now we'll get a much closer insight today into why the RBA cut interest rates this month.
Yes, I mean that one took pretty much everyone by surprise. I suppose we're all expecting that there would be some cut in the cash rate before the end of the year, but no one was really expecting that would happen in October. I mean, one of the things that I think is quite interesting, of course, the minutes will be out today, so it'll be more revealed as to what the concerns were, and in particular, I suppose it was that trend of unemployment that's sort of moving up a bit. I think the RBA is concerned about that, but it's also interesting too to just see what hasn't been passed on, by the banks in particular, and some people have been doing the numbers on that, and I think there's about $60 million of value, that has been saved by the banks by being a bit protracted and only passing on probably an average of only 20 basis points.
Outrageous,
which
shocking.
Doesn't make people terribly happy, and of course the futures markets are showing that it's likely that we'll get a November rate cut as well, so that'll be interesting to see what commentaries in those minutes to sort of dictate whether that's a likelihood as well.
What can we read into the housing and new car sales data that came out yesterday? Well,
that was a very good result on both fronts. With car sales up 4.7%, which is the highest for some time, and also, housing lending, up 1.8%. So that's a good trend, and I think the RBA will obviously be having a close look at that as well, because that's sort of indicating that perhaps consumers are sort of starting to spend again. I did look at the housing data and found that what you really need to look at there is a lot of that was refinancing as well. So it's not just the raw figures, you really got to delve behind the numbers and actually see what makes them up, because it often doesn't give you the right conclusion. But that's certainly a good trend, and obviously people are buying cars. I only wish they were buying a lot more Australian cars. I think you'll find on analysis that it's a lot of imported cars, unfortunately.
And finally and quickly, Rod, it's a good time for many years to be a Telstra shareholder.
Yes, the Telstra AGM is on today, and I think just about every journalist in the country will be covering that one. I mean, Telstra's had a massive transformation and turnaround, and I think, it's been one of those stocks that has surprised a lot of people and delivered some pretty good returns, both in terms of income and capital growth, which ticks the both boxes for anyone investing in shares.
Rod North, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to sport now. Steve Pearce joins us. Good morning.